I had $20 and that's all I had.
You have someone sitting on a great idea right now, something that's missing and is needed and could improve lives of many.
I want to help you.
What would you suggest the first step that they should take?
Who says you can only become a master at one thing? I have a habit of turning hobbies into businesses.
All right, well, people get to work. Welcome to StreetSmarts MBA, the podcast where we teach you how to be an adult, or in today's case, a happier adult. Today, we're talking about people who take interests and skills and turn them into businesses. My guest today is Ron Urbas. He's held major leadership roles across finance, software, real estate, and marketing, and he's also worked extensively in acting and producing. If he looks familiar, you've probably seen him in Orange is the New Black, Law and Order, Crazy Town, or FBI, among other projects. He's someone who has managed to turn not just skills, but hobbies into real businesses. And that's what we're here to talk about. Ron, welcome to Street Smarts MBA. What
Hey,
a resume you have.
wow, thank you. Thank you very much for that.
People have things they like doing. Some even get pretty good at them. Very few turn those things into real businesses. Tell us a little about yourself and how you ended up doing this amazing life.
Yes, somewhere in there, I also started in music. I was a professional rapper and we toured a little bit, so that was fun. And then eventually I became an actor as well. And I'm a dad, very devoted. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an artist. I like the martial arts. I like to train in kickboxing and MMA. So I'm into good health. That, in a nutshell, is all the stuff that I'm very interested in. And I'm a very passionate guy. It's very rare for me to take an interest in something and not turn it into something more. Like you said, I have a habit of turning hobbies into businesses. I think passion is a very important part of life. Purpose is very important. Getting up in the morning, every morning with something to do keeps you strong, keeps you healthy, keeps you enjoying life. Hopefully, lets you live longer too.
Did you figure out early on what sort of things interest you and where you should focus your energies?
So definitely very early in life, I'm definitely one of those people. I am passionate about things, but I think one of my problems is I easily can always find another thing to be passionate about. I do believe in finishing what I start, but once I sort of get to what I consider finished, I'm ready to do the next thing because I can get bored easily. So I remember when I was a kid, one of the first jobs I had, I worked at a locksmith. And I remember I followed along with some of his guys. And one of the guys I followed, he was telling me some story. He was describing someone. He said the problem with that guy is he's a jack of all trades and a master of none. So I was like, what does that mean? A jack of all trades and a master of none. So he said to me, jack of all trades means he's okay at many things, but he's not a master at anything. And I remember thinking, almost instantly, I said to him, "That sounds awesome." And he was like, "No, no, that's not awesome." I think the idea, the essence of the idea, I like. I think you should get very good at what you do. Yes, you should become a master, but who says you can only become a master at one thing? You never stop learning. That applies in almost every profession. So if you can't really become a master, what you can do is get better and better and better. Also, I think everything you add in your toolbox makes the other things you do better. I've noticed that if my personal habits get better, my business gets better, and vice versa. If you really want to run a successful business, you need discipline, you need good habits. If you do it right, if you're running a good business, you're probably doing things right as a person too.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of parallels. So I think the more you learn about one thing, you can always apply it into something else.
So, Ron, what was the
Mhm.
first thing you were trained in?
If we're talking about business, I started working very early in life. I was barely a teenager when I got that first locksmith job. I remember that locksmith job. They actually used me sometimes to demonstrate how easy it was to pick a lock. I learned how to pick locks. And sometimes in order to get people to buy the good locks, they'd have me pick a cheap lock. And then they'd be like, this kid can pick this lock. You sure you want this? No, no, no. What's the next level? So right there, I was like, wow, that's a salesman thing. And also that's a story. They just demonstrated something and it changed a human being's behavior. It made them make a decision. I remember that. Fast forward so many years going through life, first business. I made every single mistake you could possibly make doing my first business, which was actually in a way good, in a way it was bad. Because it's not like I went to school and studied business and then started a business. I just knew very much so that I wanted an opportunity to be a manager. That was important to me back then because I was never a manager and that meant something to me. So the only way I could do it was to start my own thing. But I didn't have back when I grew up, you need six figures to start something. to open up a store or location. You can sell online for a few bucks, find something to sell or service or create content.
What was that business? What business?
So
Uh-huh.
so it actually started as being a dog walker. I had 20 bucks and that's all I had at the time. And I was like, what do I do? What do I start? So got some paper, got some magic marker, got some tape, and literally decided to start a dog walking service is what it was originally. Just walk dogs. Doesn't require inventory. All it requires is me and just
Mhm.
getting clients and charging them to walk the dogs. And that's how I started. And it was pretty funny because I put signs on poles with tape and a magic marker on it and paper. And it was like, no one's calling, you know, because, we're definitely going to trust some random dude to be in our house to take care of our most loved pet, like our kid, right? But somehow some insane person reached out one day after weeks of nothing going on and said, so I understand you're a dog walker. I was like, didn't even know what to say. I mean, I hadn't prepared for this moment. It turned out she lived like around the corner from where I lived. And that was my first client. I think I made 25 a week because it was like $5 a walk. And that was the beginning. And it took a long time for me to get beyond one client.
Did
Yeah.
you love walking dogs or did you love dogs? Why did you decide, oh, I'm
No,
going to turn this into
no,
this?
I had no, I'm not going to say I don't love animals. I do love animals. I had a cat. I never had a dog in my life. But no, it's not like I was this passionate lover of animals. I wouldn't say I was. I wouldn't say I am. I love animals as much as the next person. Oh, and that was a question people would ask me. And I was like, no, I'm too busy to care for my own pet. So I take care of yours. So quickly, I learned basic marketing skills. I learned that number one, if you're going to build something, who's your audience? Who are the people out there that might need your service or your idea? It doesn't have to be a service. It could be a film. It could be your writing. It could be anything you're trying to put out there and maybe monetize in some way. Now, you need to know where they are, where are your customers or your potential customers. And I realized after a while, putting random signs on poles wasn't really the most effective way to advertise what I was doing. And then suddenly someone talked to me and said, have you ever thought about going to the veterinarians? I was like, really? Why? Because they're the people who take care of the pets. And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. Make friends with them and they might refer you. Look at that. What a great idea. And you got to remember, I was only like 19, 20. I mean, I don't know.
Mhm.
Some of it was common sense. Someone could say, you're so silly, but it doesn't matter. I made dumb mistakes, lots of them, but I wasn't afraid to, and I don't think I've ever been afraid to really make tons of mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. The key is to keep going, learn something and keep going. So with that said, I suddenly learned how to market a little more. Go to the clients, go to where they go, and then develop relationships. And then I started to get to know the doormen. And before you know it, I wasn't just walking dogs. I was running a pet care service. Now I want to explain. We're going to tie all this back to what you asked me. What did I learn here that I applied the rest of my life? I learned that it was important in my mind because I'm sorry to say, but there were some people who kind of treated me weird because I was a dog walker. They felt like, are you doing okay? You're young. Why aren't you in college and all this? Are you making a living? It was kind of condescending, but I understand what they were trying to do. And I remember thinking to myself, you don't know me. I'm not. First of all, there's nothing wrong with being a dog walker if that's what you do, especially nowadays. You go on wag.com, people are making like 20, 30, 40, 50 an hour and maybe even 100 an hour. So it's very lucrative to this day. But I was building a business. My mindset was someday I'm going to have people providing services to my clients. And guess what? Using the Amazon thinking, I wasn't just thinking about selling dog walking, I was thinking about selling services in people's homes. The way Bezos was thinking way ahead of everyone else. He wasn't just thinking about selling books. He named it Amazon for a reason. That's the longest river, I think, in the world. He was thinking of this massive company selling lots of things to all of us. And my mindset was the same at that point where I'm not just going to take care of your dog. I'd like to eventually sell pet food to you and make it convenient. As things get better, maybe I'll start offering other services in the homes. It never went that far, but it did go into the pet food. And then I also started taking care of the cats and then pet sitting. And then eventually you could do house sitting. You end up in really expensive homes that need someone in them. So I was building a service. And I remember my mindset was very important to me because I always had to, some days weren't good. I went years with a joke for money. I mean, really, it took a long time for me to connect the dots. But by the third year, fourth year is when I really started connecting the dots. And I started realizing this was the type of business where people would leave. Students would do this, or retired people might do this, but eventually, it wasn't a real job for them. That meant that there were accounts out there, people who had relationships with people who had pets that were leaving the business. So I reached out to them and I said, if you're ever ready to move on, sell me your clients. I'll buy them. So that's exactly what I did. So before you know it, I had guys. At one point, I had maybe about five, six people out there working for me. And all I really had to do was manage them, make sure they were doing their job properly, and just continue to focus on the business. So all those lessons of building, I learned you could build with almost nothing if you really wanted to. Look for something that requires very little investment. I learned that my mindset really, really had to be strong because I had to overcome adversity. I realized that I needed to see further ahead into my future and believe that I could get there. Arnold Schwarzenegger actually says this really well. He's quoted many times as saying he was so set on his goal that he knew everything would surrender to it. Such a powerful, crazy statement. Your goals are so defined in your mind that you're going to reach them, that you're not going to compromise. I mean, you're going to have to shift and pivot, but you're not going to compromise getting there. Everything else will have to move out of the way for you instead of you constantly feeling
Mm.
like you have to go around obstacles. So
Right.
that's powerful. Yeah.
So how long were you doing that for, and why did you decide to get out of it? Did you have a new interest?
4 years in, I realized even at that young age that I was like, I had so much more to learn. Somewhere in there, I went back to college because I dropped out of college to pursue music for a little while. And I felt like there was more to do. I wanted to play at a bigger level. I knew what a small business felt like, and I had a lot more to learn there, but I decided I wanted to now tie into a bigger company, a bigger business. So
Uh-huh.
what ended up happening was I went to CUNY. I graduated CUNY, and one day there was a flyer on the wall for becoming an investment associate at Merrill Lynch. So to me, that was a big deal. Merrill Lynch back then was a really important financial company. They're not as important now, but back then they were very important.
What did you
And
study in school?
in school, I majored, a few different things. And then eventually, just to get my degree, I majored in psychology. But I took a small business entrepreneurship program somewhere in there. At first, I majored in architecture the first time I went to school, and I did that for 2 years. And then eventually, I started majoring in finance. I realized finance wasn't for me. And then I already had my job. I ended up getting a job at Merrill Lynch through the internship. I was cold calling for over 6 months, and they were so impressed they offered me a job because I was very successful at getting people to do business with us. I ended up majoring in psychology. First, I love psychology. I do like it as a practice, but I knew I was never going to become a psychiatrist. Business is about dealing with people, so I felt that would be useful to me.
What happened after that? What other ventures did you embark on?
Yeah, after 2 years of Merrill Lynch and raising close to $10 million in assets and feeling like, why am I not making any money? I mean, they paid me nothing. And just feeling like the culture wasn't for me. And I realized I was a little more creative, a little more imaginative. I wasn't so money focused. It's finance. It's going to be about money all the time. But the creative energy I had, I wasn't able to effectively use it. And also, the company I worked for was a massive company. When you work for a massive company, you don't rise quick. You have to adapt to their structure. I'm not real good at adapting to structure. I'm a creator, I'm a developer, I'm a builder. I need to be a part of the creation process, hence why I became an entrepreneur. And I realized that after Merrill Lynch. I had computer skills from childhood. I was lucky. I really got involved in computers early in life and was self taught mostly. And so what happened was I got a temp job at a dot com. Had nothing special, just a dot com. It's not like I planned it. I didn't. And I ended up sitting close enough to a guy who ran one of the groups. And he liked my skill. He liked the way I spoke. He liked the way I was doing things, handling people. I remember one day I called in sick. And because it was a temp job, I wouldn't say they treated me badly. They didn't, but they did fire me. They didn't want me to come back. I found out from the temp agency, we're going to get you a new gig. Don't worry about it. I was like, that's messed up. I was there for a while. I took one day, I was just feeling lazy. I took the day off. And anyway, I called the guy. The guy's name is Rafi. He's a good dude. I said, Rafi, what's up? He's like, Yaron, I don't see you anymore. I'm like, yeah, they let me go. He's like, what? He's like, tell you what, do you want a job here? I'm like, yeah. So he's like, come in. You're going to go for a sort of interview. Come in tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And that was the dot-com boom. You got to understand, everything was moving fast back then. So the idea of actually, it's not like a movie. It really was happening like that. Like people would call and we need somebody to do this, fill the position yesterday. Salaries were wonderful. Money was rolling. So I came in and he offered me a job. He said, how much do you want? I had never gotten paid well up until this point. I had not gotten paid well anywhere. He offered me 60K and I was early 20 something and he offered me a 60K job. And I was just like, holy cow, man. And I tried to pretend like it wasn't a big deal. But back then that was a really big deal. It was a life changer for me. It changed the way the time my wife and I lived, and with a child as well. I ended up going to Live Person. That's the company, and they're still around. They're a publicly held company now, and I was a part of that progress. And I stayed in software engineering ever since, up until 2007 when I decided to start my own company again. I mean, I had a few small businesses before that, but I started the agency that I now run, the marketing agency.
So it takes a lot of courage to just take something and start an agency or start a business, start a company. How do you know when you have all your ducks in order before you do that?
Yeah,
Do you need to
yeah,
have all your ducks in order to open an agency? Dog walking is one thing. Opening
yeah,
up a software agency is a little trickier. So how did
yeah.
you go about doing that?
Yaffa, you just hit it on the head. I'm not the guy to line up ducks. I'm a big believer in organizing systems, right? Successful businesses run on consistency and good systems. So, yes, lining up if your ducks are well, being organized, very important. Having a plan, yeah, that's a good thing. Having an idea, having some basic business fundamentals in your head, that's great. I had none of that in the very first thing I ever started. So I don't want you to get me wrong. I have fear like anyone else. I have done things as wrong as you can do them. I have. I've made mistakes. I've lost money. I've made money. Right? Most people won't tell you they're afraid, but that's usually what keeps us from doing things.
Course,
Yeah. But it's
especially
funny.
starting something new.
Yeah. But you know what's funny? People don't actually say they're afraid. They just say, well, I don't think I'm ready to do that, or I want to start a business, or I want to start a new career, or I want to start a new hobby. And I say, why don't you do it? Oh, it's not the right time. I don't have enough money. I need someone to help me. Really, what they're saying is they're afraid, and that's okay. But what I do is I use that word. It's not fear, because where does fear come from? What is fear?
Absence of courage.
You,
You're worried about the unknown. You
yeah,
rather stick to what you know because it's scary. It feels like death. It really does because you don't know what you're walking into. So, yeah, it's pretty legit.
I think you hit it on the head. You're always going to feel fear. That's normal. Hormones are happening, biology's happening, things are happening. But if you've been in that situation before, it becomes easier to deal with the fear and to manage the fear. There's a guy who just climbed up to the Taipei Tower in China. Did you see that? And I watched his documentary. He's a mountain climber who climbs without a rope.
hmm
He's freaking amazing. And people like that intrigue me. I'm so intrigued. What is in his head that he can climb one of the tallest buildings, I think, in the world without a
hmm
rope and not be afraid? Now, he does have fear because I believe he said he has fear, but somehow he's learned to overcome that. And there's a lot of training, there's a lot of preparation. And this is where I'm getting to. You overcome the fear by gaining knowledge. You overcome the fear by exposing yourself to that thing slowly and in bits and pieces. We don't all become anything in life immediately. There's a step we take in that direction, and eventually we become ready for the next level of that thing.
Even when you get up on stage as an actor, over time you stop having a stage fright. Yeah, there are different types of fears. I would say
Yes.
that maybe that man that climbed the mountain has no fear climbing a mountain, but maybe he's afraid being on stage. So
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
whatever you train is what you get better at. So
Isn't that crazy? What
yeah.
you just said, right? Isn't it so crazy? Someone could maybe not be afraid of climbing a massive building, but be afraid of a mouse. I've seen people that I would never expect to be afraid of insects and suddenly freak out if they see a bug in a room. So there's fear in everything. When you want to do something and you don't have the strength, the will yet, take a step, tiny step. The business has many facets that I have to understand. It's not just doing the business, it's understanding the accounting, it's understanding the marketing, it's understanding how to manage people, it's
Mhm.
also maintaining good health. I'm very into fitness. I try to work out all the time. I try to eat right. If I'm not physically fit, I can't do what I do. I don't have the energy.
That's
Yeah.
a big part of it. The
Yeah.
energy, the motion, it suppresses the fear. And
Yeah.
I'm curious. So when you are speaking of ducks in a row, starting a business, I'm guessing
Yeah.
you don't write a business plan, an extensive business plan of all of the profits and anticipated profits and losses and all the other things that go into it. So for
Yeah.
listeners
Yeah.
that are watching this, how do they know when it's time to take a chance? Whether it's, I don't know, baking bread, for example, that's like my passion, or marketing, simple things that people could turn into businesses,
Mhm.
catering business. How do you know when it's okay now that I'll give it a try? What would be the steps? What would you
I
recommend?
I got a good friend. He's a popcorn guy. He's passionate. He loves making popcorn, and all of the friends, all of us, we love his popcorn. And I finally said, friend, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I want you to do it. I want some goals. He just got incorporated finally.
Oh,
I've started sending him some mock-ups, some images, some ideas, and we're talking about logistics. So you got to talk to people. So you talk about taking steps. Talk to people that don't know you. If you can, try to talk to people you just met. Okay, because it's hard to talk to strangers about your ideas, about what you're doing, and get their feedback. For how do you get started? You take a step. You're going to be scared at first. So remember that. Don't forget that you're going to be scared. I also remembered that I got smarter the more I tried and learned more. I wish we had Google when I was a kid. I used to have to go to the library to do things.
you have someone probably sitting on a great idea right now,
Yeah.
something that's missing and is needed and could improve lives of many. What would you suggest to them? The first step that they should take? They have this concept or they have this product that will improve the lives of people, but they can't seem to get going with it.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
what would you recommend?
You asked me before if I'm the kind of guy that would start those ideas with a business plan. I'm not. I'm not. But I think you should plan as much as necessary based on how much you're investing. So I'm going to say that
Okay.
again, okay? Because some people overthink. I'm a thinker. I overthink. Sometimes one thing I've learned in business, the smartest people aren't always the richest. Yes, I know we have those guys out there in the world, the Elon Musk, the Bill Gates, the Zuckerbergs, but I actually find that sometimes you can be overly analytical. Yeah.
Paralysis by analysis. But that's another question. You need money though to start a business.
Okay. If the input into the business is time and money, if the money's over a certain amount, let's say a client comes to me, Yaron, I have $1 million I want to do. We're going to put together a business plan. Okay. If you say I have $500, I'm saying, what are we thinking for? Hey, here's a bunch of small things you could start. You sell on Amazon, sell on eBay, create content, start a service, do affiliate marketing, sell hot dogs on the street corner. Don't think too much. The less you invest in time and money, the less you should be thinking about, don't overdo it. So I'm not saying don't do a business plan. I'm not saying don't sit down and go through like financials in fine detail and study your audience and get hard market data and spend good money for it. Who does it serve? What problem does it solve? And who wants it or who should want it?
Mhm.
Okay. But if you're just coming to me and say, I just want to get my feet wet, I just want a basic business. What's the big deal? I run a marketing agency. And
Mhm.
usually when I say that, people have no idea what that means. What I like to say is that I help a business sell more. I help a business grow. I help you grow your brand. If
Mhm.
you're a plumber, I help you get more calls.
Mhm.
If you're an attorney, I help you get more leads. If you're starting a new business, I'm going to help you build a brand. What's the story behind your brand? The things that we love the most, that we buy the most, typically have a good story behind them. I'm also an actor. I'm a storyteller.
How did
And
that come to be? You're landing some impressive gigs.
yeah, from time to time
Yeah.
it happens and
Yeah.
I'm blessed.
How did that come about? You have a passion for the arts.
I
A
do.
lot of
I do.
people do. How is it
Yeah.
that you are able to get those gigs? And those that are still struggling after years.
Look, you always got to understand the industry you're in and
Mm.
what success might look like. I love the arts, but being in the arts is no different to me than the way I carry myself in business. You need to meet people to give you opportunities. In acting, you need to hang out at the right places and meet the right people. Now, you can't just come without a product. You know who the product is when you're an actor?
You are.
Yeah, exactly. And so you better have it. You better have the skills. You better have the features that they need. How you look is how you look. That's fine. There's room for all of us. Some people seem to think you need to look a certain way, talk a certain way to be an actor. I feel like acting has given me an opportunity to work in front of a camera. I try to apply business concepts to my acting. I'm professional. I trained a little bit. I didn't go to school, but I would attend workshops and all that. I did also do some business stuff. I started arranging meet and greets with casting directors and charging for them. I started to create networking events. Instead of going to networking events, I mean, which I did too, I started creating my own networking events, and that was successful. Then I started to create film race contests where you start a film and you have to finish in like 1, 2, or 3 days, right? So I started that with a friend as well. And that was cool. So business always shows up. I yet again turned a hobby into something I could monetize. Look, if you can turn what you do into a way to make money, you get to keep doing it. My relationship with money has changed dramatically since I was a kid. I was dirt broke poor. My mom was a provider, but we always had just what we needed because that's what we could afford. We were immigrants. We came to this country with nothing. It's just my mom and my grandmother at the time. I didn't have a big family. We had to learn on our own. We had to build knowledge at the very first generation here. Okay, that's not easy. So the idea of constantly learning, adapting has been another theme that's been constant in my life for sure.
A lot of times people say people have this business acumen. You either have it or you don't. Is that true? Would you agree with that?
You know,
What were you like as a child? Were you a storyteller as well?
you know who taught me business, and I often forget to mention it. My grandmother. My grandmother sold stuff in the street, used stuff. Back then, it wasn't such a big deal to set up a table anywhere and start selling stuff in the street, like in some, honestly, third world country. She put old clothing and knickknacks on a table and sold it. And where she got them, I have no idea. My grandmother wasn't afraid to go into cans and get things. And guess what? Neither was I. During the summers, I used to collect cans from garbage cans because they
Hmm.
would give you a nickel. That's what I did. I see people do it now. These are entrepreneurs. These people are hustling. They're getting out there. Those nickels add up. Me and a buddy used to go to the arcade and we used to take that money. We'd make our weekend money. We'd work hard, go out there, collect cans so we could have $5 in our pocket to go and play arcade games for the whole weekend. What a lesson. What an awesome lesson. And I'll never forget, people sometimes would look at me because I was a kid. I was pretty young. And it looked like I was maybe looking for food. It was, the images in their mind. I understand why they were concerned. They had no idea this kid is being an entrepreneur right now, earning money so he can do things. It was beautiful. Yeah, I don't want my kids doing it. I want them doing something else, but this is what I did. And I learned a lot from it. And I think I'm ambitious because I saw my grandmother work hard. And I think my kids are ambitious because they see me work hard and their mom. So I was a weird kid. I wasn't doing well in high school socially. When I came to this country, I mean, I learned the language eventually, but initially I didn't. So I definitely got bullied. Bullying is a common theme in this. Like we can say that now as grown men. Now I kickbox. I can take care of myself as much as the next guy now and all that. But I feel like growing up, there was no dad in the picture. There was no man to teach you how to be a man. There was a strong mom. Occasionally, there
Wow.
were some father figures in my life that definitely gave me some direction. But there was some nurturing people. My home life was not the best. My mom did the best she could, but there were problems in the home, and that left a massive impression. I didn't know how to talk to people. I eventually got a scholarship to go to a private school. So I wasn't socially skilled yet. And that was an adjustment for me until I learned how to be more balanced and more social. It was a skill I needed to learn, just like everything else. And I feel like eventually I did. I see young people sometimes coming from different places. You can have all the money in the world and parents that are not there to actually raise you. I've seen that too. So it's just as difficult if you come from a family that's full of success as a family that's not as successful financially. So I was a precocious kid, but the one thing I had was fire. I had fire from the beginning. I had a lot of passion in me. And I think it's from my family. I've just seen
Ah,
them always push forward. I'm Jewish. We're used to struggling. I think it's cultural to keep striving and keep moving forward, regardless of the struggle. And not only that, it's very cultural to be accepting of others because you know what it is to struggle. We're defenders of other people because we know what it is to not be defended. If I see someone struggling, trying to get their passion off the ground, I want to help you.
so what are you working on right now?
My marketing agency is growing because of the shift in AI. I'm integrating AI in everything I do. And I'm also using AI to do everything faster and better. And I'm using it also to get data on our results. We're going to use data to see if the marketing and advertising we do is working. Now I'm trying to build a division that integrates AI in business.
How
Yeah.
did you get into this business? It was also a
Yeah.
passion project that
I
turned into a
yeah,
business.
the reason I came into this is because I realized that a lot of my skills in psychology and in acting and in storytelling is what we do in marketing. We create stories. I'm still an artist through my marketing agency. So, how do you go from your idea to the passion is it starts with a thing, something, right? If it's a ton load of money that you need to start something and you don't have that, is there a way you can start it smaller? I'm going to go back to my popcorn guy. He wants to open up a store in a major tourist area in Manhattan. That's millions and millions of dollars. That's a massive investment. I say, don't do that. Start with a stall, go to fairs, rent a truck, go to events where people want popcorn and start and test because you got stuff to learn. You're going to make mistakes, but you want them to be cheap mistakes. So start with something. For some people, that one step is setting up a domain name or website name. If you're not ready to buy the name, make a list of names and give yourself a date for when you're going to pick one. You just need to take a step. And when you take actions, it makes you take more actions typically. It makes you make more decisions. Rome wasn't built in a day. So baby steps. Start with something. I think the problem isn't always starting. Sometimes it's motivation. There is evidence to suggest the way you dress changes your behavior.
Hmm.
Saying I'm an entrepreneur makes me behave like one. The words we use that describe who we are shape the things we're going to do in this life. If I keep telling you you're a Navy SEAL, you're probably going to act like one. There's massive shifts going on right now in the world. AI is definitely having an impact. More and more people are meeting or telling me they're unemployed at all ages, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I'm meeting a lot of unemployed people. The world is changing. AI is going to bring some amazing things. You need to be self-reliant, but I think you're going to have to find where the money is. And being a freelancer can eventually turn into a business.
Speaking of
Yeah.
labels, the imposter syndrome. You're
Yeah.
always thinking there's someone better than you. You don't know what you're
Yeah.
doing. What would you say to people that are struggling with that?
Imposter syndrome, the definition is you're doing something at another level that you might not be used to, and you feel like a phony doing
Hmm.
it. What a horrible concept, to be honest. I don't like it. You're never going to be ready for the opportunity you've been given until you do it. You don't wake up one day and you're the CEO of $1 trillion company. You're not ready for that. You've developed skill, you've developed knowledge. You're definitely at a different level to be given to that opportunity. You're never going to be ready for the next thing. Allow yourself the understanding that you're not expected to know what to do when you get that opportunity. You're expected to learn what you need to do and have the willingness to learn what you need to do as quickly as reasonably possible. It's okay to not be 100% ready, but keep your promise, right? You want to deliver a service. You've made a promise. If you're a person of integrity, you now have to live to make that promise. You have to do it now.
It's easier to betray yourself than others. When it comes to yourself, you keep delaying it, putting it off, and then you betray yourself.
Everyone has a voice in their head that's stronger than any hater that's constantly telling you you can't do things. It's trying to keep you safe, but
Mm.
you got to be in charge of your voice.
So you've been playing on the big screen for a while
Yeah.
and small screens. Where can we find you next?
Yeah,
Where should we look for you?
my acting work, look, frankly, has slowed down a bit. I mean, there's dramatic shifts in the industry that have changed a lot of things. I still do act. I still do audition. I actually have a really nice guest star audition as we speak. I get a decent commercial auditions. I got a wonderful letter from a show creator for a show called Night Agent, which is on Netflix, and I had the most heartwarming experience. I got a letter, not an email, a letter from the creator of the show, The Night Agent, which is on Netflix. Season 3 is already released. So it's season 3, and I have a small part in it. I have a co star opposite the lead in Night Agent. He's a cool dude. Very brief exchange, but it was nice to have that interaction with him. I think I'm actually in the last episode of season 3. I think I may be even the closing scene. I love beginning scenes and ending scenes. It's nice, especially when you have a small part. It's still pretty out there. You're there. You're very present. People more
Mhm.
memorable, if you will. Anyway, I got a letter from him thanking me. Now, this isn't just to me. I'm sure he sent this letter to everyone, but it was actually hand signed. The letter was printed, but it was signed by him. I started acting in 2007. It's 2026. I've never gotten a letter like that. I'm amazed. So when you ask what I'm doing right now, I'm just grateful for that letter, and I'm grateful for whatever work I get in the industry. I've been in a bunch of stuff. If people are interested, they can go to IMDb and punch in my name. But the more recent showing is going to be Night Agent. It's a good show. I'm glad and I'm grateful to be a part of it. There's a lot of great people on it. The lead is awesome. That's what's going on right now. That's what's out there right now. Yeah.
That's great.
Outside of that, I'm really hyper focused on growing my agency and taking it to the next level. I'm
Mhm.
not crazy about using the word coach, but I'm slowly becoming a coach, a business coach. But if there's a word I specifically like to use, I want people to think of me as an entrepreneurial motivator. And what I'm doing is it's on my list because I want to turn it into some sort of a program, an offering. And I want to encourage more people that don't have the big money. I will work with almost anyone, but you have to show me that you mean it. Because especially if you're not a person with money, there's got to be that side to it, or the idea that eventually you're going to put in enough what I call elbow grease, hard work to eventually get this thing to make money. And I want to ride that journey with you because then we're both going to do well. I want to say one more thing. I think one reason why I built marketing agency is I learned something a long time ago. When I was a kid and I was broke, I didn't have a lot of money. I used to read a lot of books about successful people. And I'm talking about like books, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Bill Gates. I read a Trump book when I was a kid as far as real estate. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Lots of different successful people of the time I grew up in and from the past. And one thing that resonated was the idea that if you really want to be successful, you should be involved in a business venture that helps other people become successful. Facebook, through offering social media, we've all been empowered to be more social digitally. And that's led to opportunities for everyone. What you make of those opportunities is on you, but that empowered other people to be successful. Salesforce create sales solutions that help people sell more and businesses grow to sell more. Of course, they were going to succeed if they got that right. I, as an entrepreneur, help other people become entrepreneurs. And as they grow and their business grows, they want to do more with me and I become more successful. I'm a slow learner as far as I'm concerned. There's a bunch of people that are in their 20s that have already been built billion-dollar companies. In their 30s, they already have everything and anything that they need at major levels. They become elite football players, elite basketball players. Everything I've done has been a slow trajectory. But what I can tell you is that I know I get there eventually. And when I do, it's usually pretty good. So if anyone feels like I'm too old, I'm too slow, I'm not smart enough, I don't have enough money, I am living proof that all that literally doesn't matter, doesn't even matter. And I'm going to give you a better example. I don't remember the inventor's name, but he invented the stand-up scooter with one wheel. And this is already 10, 15 years ago. It's been adopted. It's been used in a lot of industries, but there's so many inventions this guy made. He's a very well-respected inventor. He puts new products out there all the time. He invented these self-cleaning toilets or something, and he puts them in third world countries where they don't have that. He's developed water filtration systems that run independent. They're powered by solar energy, and it can bring fresh water to places in Africa that don't have clean water, places in India that don't have clean water. And he partnered with Coca-Cola because they're good at dispensing soda and liquids. And so they invested in his technology and he gave them better dispensing technology in return. The reason I mention him is I found out that this man had a learning disability and he can't read fast. He can't learn fast. And as an inventor, this man who's extremely smart and gifted, he realized he just needed to read one word at a time. It didn't matter how long it took to get to the end of the book. He would just keep going. That's inspiring. That inspires me. I hope that inspires someone out there.
That's beautiful. All right. Well, people get to work.
Yeah, enough. All right. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. For anyone watching, thank you for joining us here on StreetSmarts MBA with Yaron Urbas at Yummy Media.
YummyMediaAgency.com. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for having me. Thank you for having me,
Thank
Yaffa. I
you.
appreciate it.
And for anyone who hasn't yet subscribed, please do so. Like, share, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.